Welcome to Podula Rasa. I'm David Blank.
And I'm Jim Esch.
This is a podcast about finding something in nothing. In my dream, I was reading a book of poetry. At one page was a picture of an elephant trunk, split, cut into pieces. I couldn't tell if the order of the pieces was correct, but the idea was to read the trunk as I moved from image to image, flowing like water down the page, as if it was a line of Japanese haiku. The images began to look less like an elephant trunk and more like stone, and as I continued to gaze, I felt as though there was a flow of energy moving down the page, almost highlighting each image. The trunk was becoming striated rock. I closed the book, and a voice issued from the book asking, "Got Transcendence?" I opened the book and looked at the page again. The energy was frozen on the first image. I read the book again, stopping again on the pulsating page. This time I selected the first image. The same question followed from the book, but then every time I reread the book, that page was frozen. It was done. I wanted to make another selection to see if I could finally transcend. It was like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle had been irrevocably invoked by something higher. Once a choice to observe the position of a particle was made, the chance to know anything about the movement of that particle is lost forever. Is that the lesson? To transcend through simply being, never trying to understand? To understand through pure not understanding? What magic is this life we lead, organically, apparently alone on a speck of a world randomly plunked among the churning chemistry of the universe? Why are we driven to know, while forever completely aware that the end always wipes clean the answer from the slate?
So that was a dream you had?
That was a dream. Yeah. My wife got out of bed at 5, and like I woke up and she said to me, "Oh, go back to sleep. It's only 5." And I was like, "No, I have to write this down." So yeah, that's what happened. It was just very strange. I literally was dreaming that I was reading a book, and it was like, it was like a regular poetry book until I got to this one page. And then there were segments of an elephant's trunk going down the page, like Japanese writing. And as you went, and I don't think I put this in my writing, but as you went down, it ceased looking like an elephant's trunk and it started looking more like water. But then, like, literally, right, that was what killed me was when I closed the book, and like this voice came out of nowhere, and said, "Got transcendence?" I don't know. Strange. Like one of those dreams you just, you don't want to lose. The second part was more as I was thinking about it. So really the dream kind of ended with the frozen page. Like, because I was trying to do it again, and that's when I woke up, and it was like I couldn't repeat it to try to transcend.
It's pretty profound stuff.
Thank you. That's why I sent it to you. I thought, you'll either like it or you'll write me and say, "Would you smoke something last night?
Are you okay?"
Yeah.
But there's a lot in that dream that just strikes me. Let me just go through some of it. Like how the trunk was turning into striated rock.
Yeah.
Like at first it's like moving like water down the page, but then it seems like it's solidifying.
Right.
Right.
Well, it was like each image was like it was almost like it was a picture, like a pictograph, and there was a space in between, and the ones on the top were moving more than the ones on the bottom. It's like the ones on the bottom were just solid. I remember that really specifically. Strange.
And then something you said here, let me find it. Well, when you heard the voice asking, "Got transcendence?" How did you take that? Like, what was your response to it?
Well, I remembered thinking I have to read it again because the answer was no. I thought I got to figure this out.
What was it asked? Was the question asked in a kind of a mocking way, like, or was it like truly curious? Like, did you see what you were supposed to see here? Did you transcend?
I think that's what it was. That's what it felt like. It was like, did you get it?
Did you get it?
Yeah.
But you felt like you didn't get it.
Right. I knew I didn't.
You back to the book again.
Right.
So then when you open the book, you did find that page, but you said the energy was frozen. It's like, does it mean like you couldn't read past that first?
I couldn't select it. It's like it's sort of like you're on an iPad. In the that page of the book was like an iPad, and I selected that one to see if that was the right answer. But there was only one chance.
So you didn't get back to the elephant trunk page?
I did.
Oh, you did.
I did, but then I couldn't pick any of the other options to see if I had picked the right one.
Maybe there were no other options.
Maybe not.
Or the other options are an illusion.
Right. And it's like you were saying in your email back to me about thinking about Atman, and if you're Buddhist, you believe that it doesn't end anyway. You just move on to the next thing. Kind of like, if I understand it correctly, it's sort of like how who you were when you were Zeus and the Druids, changed from that person into who you are now seamlessly. And that when you die, you'll change into the next thing, whatever that is. But that the Brahman that makes you, the life that comes through you, that is your Atman. Again, if I understand it right, I don't know.
Well, I was researching this a little bit, and research means for me like looking at Wikipedia.
Yeah. Well, it's all information, man.
It is, and it's really like a lot of great information on Wikipedia. I have been reading this little introduction to Hinduism because I'm trying to like clear books off my shelf. I'm like, okay, I want to read this and then pass it on, but and it's a very readable thing, and it's got like little segments from famous Hindu texts in it, like a little mini anthology. But anyway, so I guess maybe that's planted the seed of Atman, like why I was probably reading about it in that book, but this has kind of come up when I meditate. And I also watched a video with this guy. I think his name is Rupert Spira. He's clearly comes out of like a Hindu tradition. He's a British guy, but he's a teacher and stuff. He has like a lot of YouTube videos. But so I was intrigued by this Atman, and as I was reading about, so Atman in the Hindu tradition, as I understand it, and my understanding is very limited, it means, it translates as true self. So right. It's the true self that is like your essence that is sort of beyond your material reality or material self, right?
Right. It's the thing that makes you you, that if you believe in reincarnation, which is what goes from you to the next you.
The next version of you, if you will.
Right.
Yes. And then I sort of, that led me to this Buddhist concept of anatman, which apparently this is a big contrast between Hinduism and Buddhism. Mm-hmm. So anatman means non-self, or that which is different from atman. So it's not atman. And like I guess the idea is there's no essence to yourself. There's no permanent underlying substance called self in human beings. That's a big difference than what the Hindu belief seems to be, right? And then that got me thinking, and I've been meditating, and it keeps coming up during meditation. And I know I probably shouldn't be dwelling on that when I meditate. Well, you know, I think it's kind of like you get fixated on things, and it's like you're trying to figure out a puzzle. But it's interesting, right, to think about it. And even when I'm not meditating, I've been thinking about it and not knowing what I think about it. So what does it mean to not have a self? And as I read into that a little bit, like the Buddhists don't even agree on what anatman means, because there's various schools of Buddhism and they have their own takes on it. Does it mean, is it more in an atheistic kind of sense? Like you just literally have no self. Your self is an illusion. Like your atman is just transient, and there's no core, and there's nothing that will outlive you, like right now when you pass away. Or is it something more like almost like just a refusal to well, let me put it this way, because I'm here, I'm reaching the limits of my knowledge. But there's a story that the Buddha was asked by a disciple, like, about this question, and is this concept of the anatman true? And the Buddha didn't say anything, just smiled. Of course, like a typical Buddha reaction. Like, to say there is no self is almost as extreme a position as to say that there is this true self, right? So this gets me thinking, like, well, okay, I don't know what I think about it.
Right.
But your dream made me think of it too, in a way, because when you said in the dream, you said towards the end, well, first of all, the uncertainty principle, because I don't think it's really an answerable question. Like when we think about ourself, and also when you said, is that the lesson to transcend through simply being, never trying to understand through pure not understanding?
Right.
That was making me think, like, I'm trying to sort out all this stuff about whether I have an atman or not, and what that might be. But maybe that's not the point. Like, I'm never gonna get transcendence if I'm like fixated on that puzzle.
Or maybe like the idea with atman, and especially regarding this, it makes me think that like it's almost like the Narcissus story. Can you know yourself without stepping outside of yourself? That, which isn't the story, but the idea that I think the story goes, that Narcissus looked down, and then the ocean looked back, and or the lake looked, or maybe no, I'm
It was a
confusing
pun.
myself.
I just taught Narcissus this semester. I teach Narcissus all the time because I do like excerpts from Ovid's Metamorphosis, where you find that story.
Well, no, this is actually Paulo Coelho in The Alchemist.
Oh,
He,
he talks
he
about it.
he talks about that story, and he said, and his take on it was that the lake cried, not because Narcissus left, but because it was only when Narcissus looked at the lake that he could see how beautiful he was, or she, the
Right.
lake. So like he turns it around, and so it kind of made me like, that's a duality. That's kind of like what we're talking about here. That if you have this Atman, if how can you know what it is without stepping outside of it? Like, can you really know it while it's you? You can't look in the mirror and see your Atman.
Right. And yet I kind of feel like I sort of believe in this notion of a true self, because like it helps me sometimes when I'm maybe suffering from life problems or anxieties or just day-to-day shit, and you get all caught up in that.
Right.
And then like, or you're worried about what other people think of you. You worry about your self-image, like the self that you're putting out there to the world, and you might be worried about success or making money or just the day-to-day stuff. And then like I feel like there's this shadow self or this other self behind all that is my true self, that's like kind of reminding me, don't sweat all that stuff. Don't worry about that. That's not really you. All that ephemeral stuff is just like you're just caught up in the world of illusion. Like that's part of your material self, but it's not your essence.
Right.
And here's another thing I wanted to run past you, because you know more about uh, biochem stuff.
Sure.
I'm glad I thought of this. Like, I wanted to ask you this. So I was thinking about, okay, there was, the Jim from 1982 who was in a band called Zeus and the Druids for about a month. And like that self, I think, still lurks inside of me. And like there's a continuity of selfhood that like runs from when I was born to now I'm 56, right? And there's a history there, and there's a through line, there's a thread,
Right.
And yet, is it not true that like probably all the cells in my body weren't there when I was in 1982? Or like, how do you even explain that?
Yeah.
Is that true?
No, I don't know how to explain it. I think
But the
there.
cells do change. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I want to say 5 years. I think all the cells are completely different. All the atoms, I think, even. I'm not positive about that, but I know. For example, if you smoke and you stop smoking, your lungs are pretty much back to the way they were before you started smoking in 2 years. And your cancer risk is the same as it was as a non-smoker. So that's how long it takes for that, for your lungs to regenerate, um, as after some pretty heavy pollution. So, but I think it's 5 years. All of the, I don't know if it's the cells, but I don't know if it's just the cells. I think it's maybe the atoms. I can't imagine. I mean, things must
but
replace.
that's right. But
Yeah.
it's also like the atoms in your brain,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
where your memories reside and where your sense of self resides.
So maybe your brain is just like an uplink, connection point to the universe. And this thing that makes you think you're you, it's like we're separate from everything, so we think we're separate, but maybe really we're not. I think that's the only thing that makes sense to me, and it's kind of why I'm not concerned about dying, because I don't think it's that bad. I think you just change.
Yeah.
Which is maybe not a great attitude to have when when somebody close to you dies, because you're trying to, if you're trying to console somebody and you're like, no, don't worry, they're still with you. It doesn't really help them. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think that is the question. Where do you live inside your body, or are you even in your body? Biochemically, I don't know. I wouldn't know where that is unless it exists in the nucleus of every cell, and it's just there's a continuity there. I don't know. Like where do alpha waves come from when you measure those in your brain? I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
It's a real mystery.
Yeah.
To me. And maybe the self is an illusion. Like this thing that we remember, and like, okay, I have this history, because memories can be false too. Like I'm constantly remembering things the wrong way.
Big time. Yeah.
And like, you're just constantly, it's like mostly imagination, I think. Like so you're sort of constructing this image. It's like Narcissus looking in the pond.
Right.
Like, the pond image can't be Narcissus. Like it's just a reflection, or even a projection. Like he sees his image in there.
Yep.
And then he falls in love with it, but he can't. In the Ovid story, he tries to woo the image, like he tries to like embrace it and everything, and he's so upset that he can't have this, be at one with this image he's fallen in love with, that he just wastes away by the pond side and turns into a narcissus flower.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever read The Alchemist?
I have not, no.
You should check it out. And it's towards the beginning of the book. He turns it around in that way, like so that it's the lake telling the story.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I don't remember what the message was there. There's some message that he's presenting. I should read it again.
But to come back to your dream, like, were you sort of frustrated that you weren't transcending, and that you couldn't get back beyond this one selection that you'd made? Like, I'm just curious.
Well, it was really quick. It was like one of those things where you wake up and you remember something, and I remembered it all in that moment when I woke up. So I don't know if I was disappointed or anything like that, but I just, really what I remember is thinking, I have to get up and write this down. I can't forget this. It was too vivid.
It's meaningful.
Yeah.
There's something meaningful in it. And to understand through pure non-understanding, I mean, that's a great line.
Thanks.
And, also the question, why are we driven to know while forever completely aware that the end always wipes clean the answer from the slate? Like, I think it makes me think about now. I've been thinking about knowledge a lot too. Like, what does it mean to know something? Like, it's like if you possess a thought, you express understanding. I mean, how long does that last? I mean, everything changes all the time anyway. Like, it's almost like a con to think that you know anything.
Yeah.
Or once again, to get kind of stuck on that, like, I have to know, or I have to know what it means to transcend, or I have to know what myself is, or my atman, or my anatman, or whatever. It's like, I don't even know if it matters.
Well, there you go. That's the ultimate thing. It probably doesn't. I mean, I teach astronomy, and we're in week 8 right now of this class, and which is the last week, and it's where the students realize that you'll never you because the universe is expanding at a increasing rate, you can never look beyond the boundary of the universe. You'll never, literally never, even if you have the strongest telescope in the world, you could never see beyond that boundary. So it's like, so the question is, what is the universe expanding into? It starts out as a single point, blows up, and it's going and going and going, and then, but what is it even going into? And the answer is you can't ever know. We will never know. And because if it's an open universe, then it keeps expanding and it gets faster and faster. So even if somebody was at the edge of the universe and sent a signal back, it would take so long to get here that by the time we got it, it would be old news. And if it's a closed universe, eventually the gravity will take over and it crunches it all back down anyway. And if that happens, anything, us, I mean, we all turn into nothing again. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. None of it matters, really. I mean, that's maybe what the lesson is, I think.
Like maybe nothing matters, and that's okay.
Right, exactly.
Because that's the nature of everything.
Yeah.
Or, yeah, this whole question of an atman, like I do like the concept of a true self. I'm still playing with that concept, but to me, that true self is something that almost exists out of time. I don't know if it's some kind of a metaphysical plane or something, if you want to go there, but it's like the self I am right now is going to be obliterated when I die. Like, I'm pretty convinced of that, right?
Really?
Like, well, I mean, I'm dead. I don't have my thoughts anymore, and I waste away.
Yeah.
But I did exist in time and space. I had thoughts, I had emotions, like I made things, I imagined things that went maybe somewhere that exists like out of time, right?
Yeah.
So is that what they mean by atman? And is that the part that persists? And then, like, if you believe in reincarnation, which I'm not sure I do, is that what kind of like reinvests itself in another cycle of life?
I mean, all I have on that is my personal experience, kind of, and it's not really through death necessarily, but haven't you ever had the experience of you're thinking about somebody and they call you?
Oh, that happens a lot.
Yeah. Or um I mean, in terms of death, very frequently when I go to visit my father's grave with my mom, a train comes by and blows its whistle twice, which happened the first time that we went. Like, didn't happen when we buried him, but it happened the first time that we went to visit the grave afterwards. I also saw a very unusual kind of rainbow the first time that we went to visit his grave, and I've only ever seen it after that point. It's like you think of a rainbow kind of like a big arch in the sky. This was like just a circle with like stripes. It's an actual kind of optical thing that people see, but I'd never seen it before, and now I see it quite frequently, and like it always makes me think of him. Is it him? I don't know. Or does he have anything to do with the train schedule in Providence, Rhode Island? I don't know. but it's happened enough that it's become like a running joke almost with my mom. She's like, "Yeah, there's Dad." It's so I kind of think there are connections like that, and I don't know. I mean, I know what you mean when you say that when you die, you're just, it's just over. But I think that thing that makes you, that atman, I think it goes somewhere. I think it returns back to the universe and becomes part of the universe that isn't disconnected from itself like we are, or like we think we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I think it's kind of like we're human beings, I mean, we know a lot of things, and we have big brains, but
We know too much.
we don't know everything. We're
Right.
limited. So we have this kind of limited notion of time and space of what that is, but that doesn't mean it's actually that way. And so
Oh no.
I do sort of believe that there's more to the picture than what we're capable of even imagining. So I'm open to that idea that something persists. Or
Right.
just something, it could be like out of the realm of time and space. Like I said, I just call it metaphysical, sort of like it's with the physical or above it or below it or sort of other than it, but it's it's some kind of a reality.
Right.
Because it's sort of like you get clues of this, like when you have a powerful memory or in your dream life, even like things that, like there was no poetry book, that it was in your head, it was in a dream, it was a
Right.
figment of your imagination.
Yeah.
And yet it was very real. So
Yeah.
real that you needed to write about it because you knew it was
It felt important.
important.
Yeah. It felt important. Um, I think something you said struck me. This, let's say you could quantify atman as a unit, as a some quantity of energy, because in this universe, the, from a scientific perspective, all we have is energy and matter. That's number one. But then number two, if you believe science, there's this conservation of both of those things. You can't lose them. They always are around. They're always interconverting, maybe, but they don't go away. If you have a tank of gasoline and you drive somewhere and until you run out, the gasoline's not in your tank anymore, but you got from point A to point B, and you turned out a whole bunch of CO2 and water along the way. So like all those atoms that were in your gas tank still exist, but they exist somewhere else. And the whole universe is like that. From the moment of the Big Bang until right now, when the universe started, it had the same amount of energy and matter that it has in it right now. So if you consider that, and then consider your life, consider your body, or how your life or your atman or your spirit or whatever, it's all together. Maybe your body dies and decomposes, but the other stuff. So when it decomposes, it goes into other forms. The atoms and the molecules change, and that's what chemistry does. But that spirit or the atman or whatever that makes you you, I just don't feel like it can go away. I think it changes. I mean, but I don't think it's gone.
Well, where does entropy come into this picture?
Entropy is randomness. The idea that any system in the universe if you follow it over time, will go towards a state of randomness. So, if you have a glass of water, there's an ordered collection of water in there. Over time, it will either evaporate, or someone will drink it, or it'll spill over. But once those things happen, all those molecules will be very much more randomized than they were before. So entropy of the unit, that's like a fundamental principle, is that in science, is that entropy always increases. The overall entropy. So you could say, my room's a mess, I'm going to clean it up. Therefore, I have decreased the entropy in my room, which is true. But in the overall entropy of the universe, everything is grown. So it depends on how you define.
But it doesn't violate that law of the conservation of energy at all.
No, no, no.
Have you ever felt like you've experienced transcendence?
After meditation, yeah, definitely.
Is it something you can describe?
It's a feeling like, for me, in like the front of my brain feels like it's kind of like pulled forward a little bit, maybe. Like if I'm sitting meditating really comfortable and I just settle in, and your thoughts, you just let your thoughts go. And at some point they go away and it's just quiet. And if I and when when that happens and I open my eyes, I realize that I'm seeing everything in a very different way. And that, to me, and it has this feeling in my, like my frontal lobe, if you will. I don't know. I can't describe it anything other than that.
Hmm.
But it's like a it's just a feeling. To me, that's what transcendence is. And then I have a sort of a different outlook on things for a while. And that's why they tell you to meditate twice a day, is because if you transcend every time, then you'll carry that with you.
Mm.
Have you
I,
felt?
I don't know if I have or not. I don't even know if I could call it that. There were some moments last summer when I think I may have had some moments during meditation where that came across, and um, but I don't know if I can quite describe it. I don't think I've been feeling that lately, but I mean, the meditation's going fine. And in fact, I'm doing it for like longer stretches now. And the time is, I'm always like surprised when the sound goes off to conclude the meditation. I'm like, wow, that was a half hour, or that was 34 minutes. Like, where did that time,
Right.
which is a good feeling. Like, I think that's a sign that it's sort of, something good's happening, but, um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm not sure what transcendence looks like, I guess. Not yet.
To me, it feels very peaceful. If that's what, in
It's
fact, what it.
is it quiet? It's like a silence. Is it
Yeah, like
like
the
a silent awareness or something?
for me, yeah, there's a peace, and like, things that were bugging me before maybe or just don't matter anymore. They're just put away. And actually, maybe if that's what transcendence is, and if we do make a podcast out of this and somebody wants to prove me wrong, please send us an email to podularasa@gmail.com. But I had an experience the other day where I literally woke up out of a meditation. Which it always feels like waking up to me. But I came out of it and I had an insight on how to do my work. I hadn't been thinking about work. I don't even remember what I was thinking about, but I know it wasn't work. It was something more personal. And I went down to my computer and I figured out this method that I had literally, it popped into my head as I came out of the meditation. And it has made my functioning for two of the schools that I work at so much easier. Like I almost feel like I could almost double my workload right now, and it
Hmm.
wouldn't be stressful for me, because I figured out how to not make it stressful, through
Hmm.
organizing on an Excel spreadsheet. But I'd never, like, I've used spreadsheets before for these classes too, but I never used it the way I'm doing it now. And just the way that I'm tracking these classes now, it's like when I log out, I'm done. And I'll check my email at regular intervals, answer questions, whatever. But like, I have fulfilled my obligation. There's no there's no concern that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's one of the things about when you work online like I do, and especially at different places. Every place has different rules, and I forget a rule every now and then, and you know get yelled at
Right.
by the boss. Didn't
How do
put
you
this
keep that
date in.
straight?
Yeah, well, most of the time it's just right there, and I do it. But like I'll forget something. But this just takes that and it completely like makes it not even an option, because I open my spreadsheet, I click from tab to tab to tab, and do the thing I'm going to do, and it's good, and it's at least so far. I mean, because I went from teaching 2 classes at one school to teaching 5, and it got easier. So,
Cool.
For me.
And the meditation sort of opened up that space so that
I think so, yeah.
could solve that problem.
It did, yeah. And I wasn't really particularly thinking about it. I mean, I must have been. But it's like I woke up and I thought, well, why don't I do this and why don't I do that? Like, of course.
Yeah.
But yet, for 2.5 years that I've been working at this school, I never thought about that. Boom.
Those moments happen to me when I meditate sometimes, and lately I've been doing these roughly half-hour meditations. So the first 15 minutes is pretty cluttered with a lot of noise. And then that second half of the meditation is usually where things calm down and I'm sort of exist in the quiet better.
Right.
And I'm better able to let go of the thoughts as they come through. But sometimes I'll come out of meditation and I'll write a haiku, or the haiku will come like in the middle of the meditation. And then I make sure I write that down. Sometimes it's a problem. It's like a solution, like you mentioned, like some idea, like, oh, I should try this with the class, or like, oh, I need to get in touch with this person. I haven't written them in a while.
Right.
Or it could be some idea for the podcast or something. Like those have been coming up a lot. And it's not the reason why I'm meditating. It's like I'm not trying to control anything. It's like that stuff just kind of wells up. Right. But I don't know if I would have thought of them if I hadn't had this quiet time. And but last summer I was having some really good meditations. I think it was because I was doing it with my hearing aids in, so I was, and the windows were open and stuff, so I'd hear the birds and like noises outside and the wind and the rain and whatever. And like there were times where I almost just, analogies are always imperfect, but I kind of felt like a bowl.
Yeah.
And it was like an empty bowl. But then these things were coming from outside, just kind of like filling in that bowl.
Wow.
And
it
was a great feeling.
Yeah.
It was a great feeling. And that was where I felt like more like atman, maybe like non-self.
Right.
Maybe not self, but maybe non-self. But like you're sort of being in the moment, but like you're with everything else is part of you. Like you are that, and that is you, right?
And so that stuff was filling in.
Yes, the empty vessel.
Interesting.
But I think over the winter that's been happening less because I'm just basically sitting in the recliner and I don't put my hearing aids in the morning. The windows are shut,
right.
The heat's on, and it's just a different like tone to it. But as it gets warmer, I'll probably start going back upstairs on the 3rd floor. It's a really nice, quiet room, and it's a good place for things like that to happen. You're like up above. It's like 3 floors up.
Yeah.
And it's you're sort of above the fray.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice.
Wow, that's very cool.
But that's the cool thing about it. Every day is different. Every day is sort of a unique experience. There's continuity, yeah, but it's like it never gets old. It doesn't get boring for me. Like, what's going to happen today?
Well, it's productive. But it's interesting. Like, I never thought about it as a bowl. For me, it's always like I'm emptying my mind of the thoughts rather than, having everything else fill me in.
Right. Well, think about it. It is like that. It's like first I kind of empty myself.
Yeah.
That's what the meditation is, kind of like clearing all that stuff out. And then it's not that it fills up right away with other stuff. It's just I notice these other things like happening.
Right.
Because there's now space. It's just like a different way of being in your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Where you sometimes it's just like you notice your breath, like, or something,
right,
or whatever.
Hmm.
Just a different analogy. I'm
Yeah,
sure
and
you've had the same feeling.
I like it. I just never thought about it like that. That's cool. It's very cool.
Well, yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
I feel like we just figured out the meaning of life or something.
Meaning and non-meaning.
Not life.
Understanding through not understanding life and not life. Right. Yeah, it's like the duality. You just can't get away from it.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
Either or.
Right.
It's never either or.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Pagula Rasa. If you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, go to anchor.fm or Spotify or Apple Podcast or Google Podcasts or your favorite podcasting application. Sign right up and you won't miss any new episodes. If you'd like to send us feedback or show suggestions, send them to padularasa@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, padularasa.com. It's our WordPress. And there you will find some cool extra goodies, such as The Modern Poet's I Ching by Tom Williams. We've rescued that from the Internet Archive and reformatted it and put it back up online so people have easy access to those poems and hexagrams. And until next time, be well, and thank you all for listening.